I brought in both sides because I wanted to have a debate where people could actually have a chance to tell their side. And invariably, I got comments. I can show you examples of letters from people on, it was almost always the left that said, "Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you so much for letting us tell our side of the story. But I can't believe you gave those other people a voice. I can't believe you let those crackpots on the stage to talk about what they were talking about. We're right. We have empirical evidence to support it." I said, "But wait a minute. You just said we had an intelligent, balanced discussion about this, and they too have empirical data to support their points of view." "Well, yeah, I hear you say that, but I can't believe you gave them time on such a huge platform to spew their viewpoint." It's like my head wanted to explode.
So let me give you 3 examples based on that list of information that the public may not realize. I've been focused on education in the inner city now for about a decade. And I teach at Verbum Day, and I try to participate in their activities. And we're talking to parents from across the country, Black and brown parents. We're asking them what matters to you. And my client in this wants to promote equity. They want to communicate the importance of equity. And the parents kept saying to me, "It's not equity we want for our kids, it's quality. We will address the racial disparities and discrimination in due time, but our kids can't read, they can't write, they've had 2 years of crappy education, give me quality." And I kept pushing equity, equity, equity. And finally, I had 2 parents say to me, "We know you're paying us to participate in this. Keep your money. If you mention equity one more time, we're hanging up." Our child has to be able to read. Our child has to be able to do a budget. Our child needs to live in the real world. There is time for equity. Right now, you are failing us. So that's number 1. Parents, Black parents, brown parents aren't screaming for equity. They want quality. Number 2, there is this great desire to take faith out of schools, to take faith out of society. When we stop teaching kids that there was something in life that was greater than them, that was more significant than them, that they can't always be focused on themselves and their own selfish needs or even each other, that there is a greater purpose in life. When the kids lost that view of faith, they lost the respect for each other. They lost the respect for themselves. And it's one of the reasons why it scares me to hell that we are constantly teaching young people to be proud when they've done nothing to be proud of, and we're not teaching them humility and decency. And parents embrace that, and even the young people I talk to embrace that. Teach humility, not necessarily pride. And third, and this is not about education, but it is about the future. Just how many young people today in the schools believe that their lives are going to be worse than their parents. We have lost that intergenerational confidence that the future will be better than the present. And when you stop being confident about the future, you seek immediate gratification. You seek immediate benefit. And our young people today are so afraid of the future that they are now completely living in the present. And the consequence for that, for us, in the years to follow is horrific. So, and again, do I call you Doc? I've got to ask you, when people come up to you, I know they call you Dr. Phil. What do I call you? Please tell every listener when they see you on the street, what do they call you?
Everybody calls me Dr. Phil, but you can call me anything you want.
Okay, so Dr. Phil, we have to tackle, it's too late for the adults. The adults have already been poisoned. The toxicity of politics on the left and on the right, because I hold both sides responsible. We can't affect that, but we can affect the kids. And the kids, in what they are asking from us and what we are failing to give them, is so broad right now that I cannot help but be pessimistic. And one last point, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this, is the fact that there aren't enough adults in the lives of these young people, particularly in the inner city. And I just had this conversation before coming on here right now when Daniel Patrick Moynihan said that there are too many Black men exiting their families, and there aren't enough men involved in Black and brown families. He would be a racist, or he'd be called a racist today. But we see the consequences of this every single day. And I had the temerity to bring this up to a group of teachers when I was applauding a Black male teacher for being so dedicated to his students and so focused on teaching respect for women, on teaching exactly what Will Smith did not show when he got up and did that slap. And several female teachers said, and they were outraged that I would bring this up. I know that this, by my addressing this risks my own situation right now. We need more Black male teachers. I will do anything to get more Black male teachers because these boys need men in their lives. They need to be taught how to behave. They need to be taught how to tie a tie. Their moms, and in many cases, their grandmothers, are doing a brilliant, heroic job raising them. But Black men in the classroom give them a role model. And the fact that we can't have this conversation now in society, the fact that I could get canceled after this podcast, and I don't want you to edit this, I want this in there, because I'm not being afraid anymore. I didn't die. So we need to be willing to speak out.
Why do you think you will be criticized so much for saying we need Black men in the classroom, we need Black and brown role models for these young children?
Because it happened to me, because I'm on a focus group and I want to air that focus group. I've got a tape of it. I want to put it on TV, but I'm not allowed to do it. And two of these female teachers said, I can't believe you just did that. Not in this day and age. I told the truth, and they know I told the truth. But the way that we now look at it in society is if someone else is rising, by definition, it means that we are falling. And it has never been that way in American society. We always believed that a rising tide lifts all boats. But now it's us versus them. It's men versus women. It's Black versus brown versus white. And by the way, I'm going to give you something else because I want this podcast to have things that no one's heard before. I absolutely believe that the big division that's about to happen in society is going to be between the Black community and the brown community. Latinos and Hispanics feel left behind. They feel forgotten. They don't feel part of this current conversation. And they don't feel that the white community respects them and appreciates them. And they don't feel that the Black community represents them or fights for them. It represents 25% of America. And we're going to see that division over the coming weeks and months.
Who's going to lead that for the brown community? Who's going to be the person they rally around in delivering that message?
We don't know. I don't know. The brown community has not been as politically active. They're not as well organized. They're not as public. Many of them came to America through questionable circumstances, and they have never really, their voices have not been heard. They don't have a Black Lives Matter speaking up for them. They don't have a John Lewis or a Karen Bass fighting for them. And so they've been silent. But in my sessions, in my focus groups, in my travels across the country, they are frustrated, they are angry, they're incredibly hardworking, and they are dedicated to the country. They want their kids educated. They want to work. They don't want to collect benefits. And they feel that no one understands them. And this is the year that I think we reach the breaking point.
Do you think that will be something that happens in the streets and in rhetoric, or do you think it'll show up at the polls?
I think you're going to see 40% of the Hispanic and Latino community voting Republican, which will be a recent high. And I think you're going to see more Latino candidates. And you notice I go back and forth between Hispanic and Latino because I'm trying to be respectful to them. And the people who created Latinx, you want to know how we don't understand? The progressive community says they're Latinx. It's not Latino or Latina. Let's create this Latinx because then it's gender neutral. And you know what? They dropped it because the Latino community doesn't want that. They don't want what the progressives claim that they want. I do think it shows up in the polls this year. I do think that we will see this summer significant commentary. But what I don't think is you won't see the same reaction as Black Lives Matter. You won't see people taking to the streets. You won't see the destruction that we saw in so many cities, including Los Angeles, where I happened to be when the riots were happening. But I do think that we have, and I speak up about it whenever I get the chance, because you shouldn't have to have violence to get solutions. You shouldn't have to take to the streets to get change. That everyone deserves to be heard. Every voice should be respected, and every child matters. And I don't think we're doing that in America right now.